Hi, Dr. Mindock here. Let's talk about this year's high school lyrical etude for bassoon, which comes from the Weisenborn etudes. Can I just take a second and say how excited I am that we're using Weisenborn etudes in Alabama now? Yay! These are, they're the etudes most other places use for All-State. These are the Mildies. And I think they are so beneficial to you beyond the All-State audition process. So I'm really excited that we're using them. If you ever actually go on to do anything else with bassoon, past high school, you're going to encounter these etudes again. People will play them. You might work on them again. They're really central to bassoon study. They have so much in them that's specific to playing the bassoon, and they're so musical and they're so rich with content that this is great. I'm super excited. Anyway, so this etude is tricky. It's got a lot of weird stuff in it. So you might not be excited about it right now. But let's talk about the ornamentation in particular, because a lot of that might take some verbal description and some guidance to help you play correctly. So let's talk about turns first, because turns are something that a lot of us don't play every day. A turn is cool because it sounds like it looks. So you got a little squiggle that goes up, it comes back down, it goes down below, and then comes back to the same level. That's what you're going to do with your note. You play the note above it in the key signature, you come back to the note, you play the note below it in the key signature, and you come back to the note. And note that I'm saying you go up and down to notes around the bass pitch in the key signature, unless the turn has signs on it that tell you to change that pitch, which we have in these turns, right? The first one that shows up has a sharp underneath it. So that means when you go to the note below the bass pitch, we're playing a G, the note below that bass pitch would be an F natural normally. You're going to raise it a half step. So here you'll use an F sharp, right? Very kindly, Mr. Weisenborn has provided you with an editorial suggestion for how to play that first turn. So I don't have to talk about that one a whole lot. I will note that when I play it, what I did in my recording, I think I actually do start that one on the G and then still just execute the turn as it would be indicated. So if you hear that and get weirded out by it, that's also an acceptable way to play a turn like that. But he's given you this option of starting it on the A instead. Basically, the idea is that he's starting it all on the note and consuming the entire note with the turn, as opposed to trying to hold that bass pitch for a little bit and then use the turn to spin it and connect it to the next note after, which is normally what you would do with the turn. So I think either way would be acceptable, to either use his editorial mark here or just to start right on the G and do a turn if you're already used to turns and know how to fit them in. This is easier, what he has written, because it's 4 notes, it's an easy subdivision. What I did ends up being 5 notes, which might feel a little less comfortable to a lot of you. So don't be wigged out by that, both are okay. But the ones that we need to talk about are the turns on the second line in that last measure, because those are on dotted notes. And when turns are on dotted notes, things get kind of weird, because a turn is ideally used to connect notes together. But when you put a turn at the end of a dotted note, you end up playing the turn figure on a strong beat and connecting it to a weak beat, which feels really wrong. It's not usually how we use turns. So you always want to still have that gesture being moving to a strong beat. And on a dotted note, the strong beat is inside. It's in the middle, right? Dum, bum, bum, right? That's how dotted notes function. So it's that da, that guy right there. Dum, bum, bum is where your turn is going to go to. So let me talk through this. The talking part is probably going to be complicated, so I will also then you have my recording to base this off of, and I'll try to sing the rhythm. I think it's easier just to copy it, but I'll explain what I'm doing for you. So you got a dotted eighth note A, right? A dotted eighth note A has 3 16th notes in it. You with me? Okay. So if you hold that A for the first 16th note, just play a straight A, okay? And then for the second 16th note, the one that's in the middle, okay, you'll do the turn business, okay? And this is a complicated turn because it's got a natural on the top and a sharp underneath. That is a natural, I promise. And in my edition, it looks kind of hard to read. Maybe you've got a better one than I do. So that means you're going to go up to a B natural, because normally it's a B flat in the key signature, right? And you come back to the A in the middle, and then you go down to a G sharp, which would normally be a G natural in the key signature. You're going to do those 3 notes, the B natural, the A, and the G sharp, as a triplet on that second 16th note of the dotted eighth A. Okay? And then you've got 1 16th note left. You're going to hold an A, because that's the end of the turn. Bum, ba-da-la-dum, like that, okay? And then you move on to the next thing. You play the B natural that's on that next 16th note in the beat, okay? And then you do the same thing for the next turn. You've got a C. You're going to hold it for a 16th note worth of time. You're going to go up to a D, a C, and a B natural, as indicated by the turn there. as a triplet on the second eighth note, back to a C, and then you play what's written D, E, E. So it'll go da 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 dee da 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 dum bum bum like that. And that's me snapping eighth notes, if you hadn't figured that out yet. Eighth notes are not a bad subdivision to feel for this guy because it'll help you figure out all this counting. It'll tell you where to put those turns. It'll also help a bunch with this double dotted quarter that's in the second measure. Did you notice that thing? What is that? Just to briefly talk about those two to make sure you're all cool with how to read a double dotted quarter. So a dot is worth half of the thing that precedes it, right? So in a normal dotted quarter, the thing we've all played a million times, you've got a quarter note, it's got a dot after it, that dot is worth half of the thing that precedes it. The thing that precedes it is a quarter note. Half a quarter note is an eighth note. So you put that together, you got a quarter note, you got a dot worth half of a beat, you get a beat and a half. Cool? Makes sense? That's the normal thing we always do. We have that here, that's present, it just has another dot on it. So that second dot is worth half of what precedes it. What precedes it is a dot that's worth half a beat, right? Okay, so then the second dot is worth a quarter of a beat because it's worth half of the eighth, right? Okay, so that means you've got a quarter note, you've got a dot worth half, and you've got a dot worth quarter. So you've got 1 3/4 beats for that guy. And then the remaining quarter of a beat that would fill it out is that 16th note B flat, okay? So if you're filling the eighth notes as your beat, okay, then it'll be pretty easy to tell where that goes, whereas it'll be a little harder if you're not thinking that way. In fact, actually, the best way to figure out where it goes is if you're counting your 16th notes, but this is probably a little fast for that. Counting your eighth notes will also tell you exactly where to put the 32nd notes in the first bar, which is, by the way, a written out turn. That's all that is. It's just a turn without the symbol, so it'll feel the same as some of these other gestures you're doing. Okay, other ornaments we need to talk about. There are mordants in the third bar on line 2. What is a mordant? It's that little funny squiggle thing. A mordant is a one-note trill, okay? So you're going to play that bar. I would play through it without the grace notes first, or sorry, without the ornaments first, just to make sure you've got a real rock-solid understanding of how that rhythm works and where all those 16th notes fall. They are not going to move, okay? You're going to do them exactly the same, but when you hit that E, you're going to wiggle up to your F, so it's always to the note above in the key signature, right on the beat, and then you're going to do the same thing on the C. It'll actually probably feel like a little triplet. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. That's how they'll come out. So that bar, dee-ya-dum, ba-da-ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum, like that is how they'll fit in. And then they're followed by those crazy turns, right? Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, bum, bum, bum. Good times. Always remember trills are to the note above in the key signature. That's an important thing. So, you know, B flat to C. A tip for that one, just wiggle your first finger on your right hand. Leave the rest of it in place. Don't have to wiggle your whole right hand to get from B flat to C. Other stuff I think is pretty straightforward. There is this funky, nasty grace note at the beginning of that fourth line. That low C is just rude city. But take your time and make sure you think about playing the low note. Like aim for the low note and make sure it comes out before you head up to the high B flat. And it's tough. I mean, like, usually I would give you the tip of slurring up to that B flat by flicking, but you just had your thumb on the low C key. Like, I mean, you should still try to flick, but you're going to lose the C as soon as you pick up your thumb. So, like, you can't. Like, it's just, there's nothing you can do about that. So it's tough. It's very tough. So just make sure you're aiming your embouchure for each of those notes. And in general, my big tip for this one, it's andante sostenuto. It says cantabile, song-like, singing, right? So you want to make sure that your phrasing is very smooth, that you're blowing across the bar lines, that you're not letting all this rigorous counting you're doing be audible, right? And then you can take a little bit of time in some of this. You can use a little rubato because it is so lyrical and sustained and pretty, and you want it to sound musical. You don't want it to sound mechanical or stodgy at all, right? So feel free to be expressive about it. Use vibrato if you have it. If you want some tips on that, I have lots of tips. You can send me an email, give me a call, or come visit. I'm happy to work with you guys if you're close enough and want to come by for a lesson on this guy. There's a lot to unpack here. I've already been talking at you for almost 10 minutes, so I should quit. But if you want to hear more, I'm here for you. Give me a call, send me an email. Good luck. Happy practicing.